This is the introduction to infinite banking. In the next 2.5 hours, however long we need, just to start at the high level, this is the flow of why you do infinite banking. This is the whole point of doing it. You're just using an arbitrary number like $100,000, put it into a whole life overfunded policy, and you put it into there. And the whole point we're doing that is so we can bank from ourselves or utilize this banking phenomenon so that we can take a loan from our policy and then invest it in rental properties, syndication deals. You can remodel your house. You can buy a car. You can pay for your kids' education. You can use that cash value for whatever you want. And you can use the income from the assets that you invest in, such as real estate, syndication, or just put it in the stock market to pay for the debt arbitrage. Very similar to a HELOC, but I feel like this way of doing things is much more superior. You can use it to pay for unexpected expenses, and then your policy grows and grows and grows. And then now you have this big pot to pick from. And this is what more experienced investors will use as their opportunity fund to go into more and more investments. And in case they need to have these expenses in life that pop up. So this is the cram school. We're going to be walking through the eCourse page by page. Again, hold the random questions to the end, but if you guys have any pertinent questions to what we're talking about, please put it in to the question and answer box. Just a little background on myself. I got a wife and child and a dog now. I grew up in Hawaii. I was in Seattle from 2003 to 2007. My education background is a bunch of engineering. I started investing in 2009 with my first rental, got up to 11 rentals in 2015. Today, I mainly invest in private placements and syndications. As a lot of accredited investors will say, why can't really find any really good reason to own any rental properties directly. Private placements and syndications, if you can find people that you trust, you don't get any debt in your name, none of the loans go in your name, they go in the general partner's name, none of the headaches like tenants, toilets, and termites, and I think just better deals. And this kind of goes hand in hand with this infinite banking strategy that we're going to talk about today. The syndication deals come up infrequently, and you need to save up large chunks of money, $50,000, $100,000. So this is what I do with my infinite banking policy. My buddy here, Tyler Furukawa, is also going to be presenting with me.
Sure, good morning. I also grew up in Hawaii, a bit older than Lane though. Also went to Seattle, University of Washington, and I studied metallurgical engineering. I actually went there on a Naval ROTC scholarship. So upon graduating, I became a naval officer for 8.5 years. Through that 8.5 years, also got my master's in mechanical engineering. In about 2009, I transitioned out of the active duty and went into civil service, still worked as a federal worker, as an engineer, and did various jobs, project management, construction management, facility management, and then became a frontline supervisor, eventually ending up as a chief engineer with Veterans Affairs. And I've transitioned out of that. As far as my real estate investing background, I started my investments back in 2002. I bought my first single-family home in Jacksonville, Florida, mainly with the VA loan, and I did what is now known as house hacking back then. Acquired about 3 or 4 more doors over the next 4 years, but it really got over. I was one to do it all myself, so I got to my maximum limit as being able to manage it myself. Stopped. At the same time, I was married, having kids. So my focus shifted to that until about 2017 when I started dabbling around in mortgage notes. Wasn't as simple as I thought also, and then I stumbled across Lane on the internet in 2018 and been drinking the Kool-Aid ever since. Now mainly focused on syndications, portfolio of 24 syndications, and had 3 of those go full cycle. That's what's allowed me the freedom to basically walk away from my W-2. As far as the insurance side, I was really pitched the idea of infinite banking about 10 years ago. I blew it off and disregarded it until around 2017 when I started looking at other investments. I just kept on hearing infinite banking come up, so I jumped on a policy. It was an IUL, and it's a little bit more gray and hazy of how those work. Being an engineer, being a numbers guy, I just started tracking it, researching it. Couldn't find as much information as I wanted to, so I decided to get licensed to see the inner workings of. And Lane approached me to say, "Hey, I've been studying this. Why don't I share the knowledge with his group?" So that's where I'm at here. As far as writing policies, I started writing policies in 2019, and that was after joining a mastermind, just getting the confidence to do it. And yeah, here I am now. I'm licensed in various states and enjoying it.
Yeah, so a little bit more context on that. I started my policy, I think in 2018, and I started to realize that a lot of you guys might have already had policies set up, but they jack it all up because they configure it the wrong way, not the way that we want. And we'll get into how you want to configure it. I told Tyler, hey, I told him about it, and he kind of geeked out on it. We recently did this predictive index test. I don't know if you remember what you are, Tyler, but it's like the DISC profile. As we start to hire employees on my side, I realized like I'm a venturer. I think I'm like a leader, but I have all these wild and crazy ideas. I need people like Tyler, who's the scholar, who's going to learn it and come back, 2 years, 3 years later than we originally had that conversation. And there's some tricks to this infinite banking thing. It changes quite frequently. Tyler's going to be talking about some of the changes that are going to be coming up. The hint is the best time to get it was yesterday, but Tyler does a good job of kind of learning the details of this, and it is really a full-time job to learn and keep up on this type of stuff. I want everybody to be going through the eCourse with us, so if you guys can go to SimplePassiveCashflow.com/bank, you guys should be able to get the outside info page. But what you really want to be getting to is within your guys' members portal. If you guys can go to eCourses and scroll down to the Infinite Banking eCourse, you guys should all have that unlocked right now. So you click on that, and we will be going through each section and chapter here very slowly. I'm surprised nobody has asked, I don't have access. Give me access. Sorry, you guys should all have access to your guys' members portal by now. Use your email, and then if you haven't been in here before, you haven't changed your password, the default password it goes to is password123, all lowercase, no spaces. Any questions before we move off of getting access, and then that way you guys can walk through the course along with us. So infinite banking from a high level, we recorded I think this is a 30-40 minute webinar. I suggest taking a look at that later, but when we kind of chime in here, Tyler, whenever if you want to add stuff, as we just walk through this course section by section. The infinite banking from a very high level, it's very similar to putting money into your 401ks, IRAs, or in your HELOC in your bank. It's a way of storing cash in the form of cash value. You're able to pull it right back out to use it for whatever you need, such as investments or emergency.
Yeah, and I think traditional financing, either in a bank, you're losing your purchasing power if your money is just sitting there, you're not beating inflation. And then the traditional storages of retirement accounts, the major downfall of that is that it's illiquid, so you have very little access to it. Yeah, and this is just showing, I think, life insurance is a safe, stable asset. Banks heavily rely on it on their asset books. They have lots of bank-owned life insurance as their reserves or as a small part of their investment strategies, but mainly for a lot of their reserves. The ultra wealthy banks, they're the ones utilizing these a lot, and we're trying to open the doors to not be so exclusive to those groups, that even us, we can use these policies similarly.
Yeah, and my takeaway from these is you do what the smart money does. That's why I always report on what Blackstone is doing. They're currently buying up a bunch of rental properties because they know what, and these are the strategies that, Walmart will take life insurance policies of their head guys, not because they like them or anything like that, but it's a good store of place to stuff cash that grows tax-free. And that's the big loophole in this whole thing. Your money in these life insurance policies, for some strange reasons, it's tax-free. If you can stay under that MEC level, we'll talk more about that. I think that we're talking about whole life insurance overfunded. And if you guys are probably Googling this now on the side, or if you have in the past, there's a whole bunch of negative press on it. Dave I don't know why you're following Dave Ramsey in the first place if you're not in huge credit card debt. He'll absolutely just talk, say this like the worst thing in the world. It's a scam. It depends what your purpose is and what are you using the insurance for. The way we're going to be doing this is we're trying to optimize the policy for the maximum amount of liquidity, and we're going to lower the amount of death payout and of how much which is very counterintuitive to how everybody thinks about this stuff. And I've talked to a lot of life insurance guys, and they're like, hey, Mr. Simple Passive Cash Flow, don't you want it to be done this way? I'm like, no, you guys don't understand like what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to stuff money into this policy so I can take it back out as a cash value loan and go invest it in something that makes me double digits. So a lot of you guys, like my wife included, I think Tyler, the same thing for you, right? Policy created initially, but it wasn't configured the right way. It wasn't configured the way that the wealthy use it. And that's what we're going to teach you guys today.
Yeah, and one of the end main goals is people can hear become your own bank or be your own bank or bank on yourself. Nelson was the founder as far as publicizing a lot of the techniques. And the big benefit with that is being in control, removing the middleman, recapturing a lot of the opportunity costs, or just rediverting the interest that you're paying to traditional banks. And you're having full control of that portion of your finances within the policy.